Sometimes the people in your life that are meant to protect you are actually the people who end up putting your life in jeopardy. Today's true crime case is the Jennifer Morey story. I'm Brandi, and you're watching Killer Bites. In 1995, Jennifer Morey was an ambitious 25-year-old lawyer moving to Houston to begin a new job. Jennifer was beginning to make a name for herself in Houston in the male-dominated legal world. Jennifer was super focused on her career during a time it was particularly difficult to break through that glass ceiling. When she was moving to Houston, she had gone out of her way to find a new apartment complex that was as safe and secure as possible. She picked a new apartment that featured an 8-foot fence, secure access, and security guards. On the night of April 15th, 1995, Jennifer had gone out with a few friends to get some drinks and go dancing after work. After a night with her friends, she made her way back to her apartment. She took the elevator up to her door and went inside. Inside her apartment, she began her nightly routine. Contacts out, teeth brushed, and then she went to bed. But later, she would be awoken from a deep, sound sleep in a way she had never seen coming. She woke up to a body pressing against hers. This body was forcefully holding her down in bed. Jennifer later recalls the scene. "I believe I was in a very, very sound sleep, and when I felt suddenly, as I'm coming awake, someone on top of me. His coarse leg hair scraped against her legs, and when she reached her hand up, she found a knife to her throat." Jennifer remembers the night saying, "I reach my hands up and I feel this knife that's being held against my throat, and it was the clearest thought that went through my brain and woke me up. Oh, I'm being raped." She begged him to stop as he grabbed at her underwear, attempting to pull it off. It was clear he was in a fit of rage. She knew then that it would be a struggle between the two of them until one of them won. He struck her in the face and her cheek was cut open. At the time, after the explosion of red fluid that cascaded across the scene, Jennifer had thought her attacker had cut her eye out. The attacker also slashed her throat, leaving her with a deep wound, but nearly missing her jugular vein by millimeters. It was pitch black in the apartment, and she could barely see with the injury to the eye. All she could see was his hair, a short, straight cut, and as the knife flailed wildly, she screamed at the top of her lungs. She screamed loud enough for 15 people in the building to wake up to her horror, but none of them came to help. "Jennifer, shut up," he shouted. She knew instantly that this man knew her, but in the dark, she had no idea who he might be. Jennifer recalled trying to barter with him, anything to get him to stop. For some time, she was convinced that she could get him to stop. But as the attack brutalized her, she thought for the first time, "I'm going to die." Wow, I don't know what I'd be thinking at this moment if this was happening to me. But as he dragged Jennifer toward the bathroom, ordering her into the tub, she thought, "I can't get raped. I can't die." Her attacker had dropped his knife back in her bedroom during the struggle. And when he went back to get it, Jennifer's lightning fast mind knew she couldn't just lock the door. This man would break it down. So she slammed it shut and wedged her entire body, still covered in blood, between the door and the side of the bathtub, pushing her legs as hard as she could against the man now battering the door at the other side. After all the battering and commotion, the noise suddenly ceased. She grabbed some nearby toilet paper and pressed it to her neck to help stop the steady rush of red fluid running down her body. She stayed pressed against the door and tried to listen for any movement or sounds on the other side. Through the deafening silence, she could hear the man walking around the apartment, rummaging through her things from room to room, and then she heard the sound of him zipping up his pants and then exiting the apartment. A memory she still hears clear as day. Still in shock, Jennifer had a horrific decision to make: open the door to escape her apartment or bleed to death on the floor of her bathroom. Jennifer decided to open the door, not knowing whether or not the man was still inside. But after fighting to keep him from entering, the door had been jammed. After luckily escaping her attacker, she unfortunately thought she would die from blood loss on her bathroom floor. But she still mustered the strength to get it open and found herself in the pitch darkness, groping for the light switch without her contacts in. The world was blurry, and when she flipped the switch, nothing happened. For a moment, she thought she might have forgotten to pay her power bill. But when she tried the home phone and found the line dead, she knew the man had cut the power to her apartment. It was pretty rare in 1995, but Jennifer was lucky enough to own a cell phone. The journey through her violated home was fraught with terror, second-guessing the man's whereabouts as she passed every chair, couch, or corner. But the man was nowhere to be found. She dialed 911, and the operator on the other line, Richard Everett, quickly became her best friend, reminding her to stay calm and talking steadily with her the whole time. On the call, Jennifer said, "Please help me. This guy just tried to cut my throat. There's blood everywhere. I'm covered in blood. He knew my name. I don't know who it was. I know I locked the door. I don't know how he got in the apartment." At some point during the call with 911, around 10 minutes or so, Jennifer tells her 911 dispatcher, Richard Everett, that someone is knocking at her door. She thought it was the police arriving to help her, but her attentive emergency operator told her that his GPS was tracking the Houston police she was waiting on, and they hadn't arrived yet. Jennifer looked through the peephole of the door to see the apartment complex's security guard, and as he pressed her harder to open the door, saying that he could help her, her emergency operator's voice cut clearly to her mind. "Jennifer, if you don't know who that is, do not open that door." Everett, the operator's thoughtfulness, would end up saving her life. When police finally arrived, the security guard was gone. Jennifer opened the door for the proper authorities, and just before she collapsed, she heard them describing injuries that security had suffered from the attack. Jennifer was taken to the hospital and was lucky to survive the attempt on her life. She had to undergo surgery due to the severity of her injuries. Thankfully, the surgery went well, and Jennifer was going to be all right. The police and the detectives, they all came into the hospital to the emergency room and post-surgery, Jennifer said, and were like, "Girl, you put up one hell of a fight." The police went on to investigate Jennifer's apartment, and they found a Pinkerton security hat inside. The man who had attacked her was, in fact, the on-duty security guard of her apartment, Brian Wayne Gibson. Had she opened the door to him, she knows he would have killed her. Brian Wayne Gibson was a 26-year-old man. He started working for Pinkerton Security in 1992 at $5.25 an hour, $1 more than minimum wage at the time. During his 3-year employment at Pinkerton, he was removed from 2 separate assignments for getting into arguments with the clients. He had a lot of issues and was far from a perfect employee. He was finally reassigned to the apartment complex in Houston after a client complained that Brian had used the client's vehicle without permission. Instead of firing him or pressing charges, Pinkerton transferred him to the night shift at Bayou Park, where many young women lived alone. And then eventually on April 15th, 1995, he attacked Jennifer Morey. Gibson was arrested after his belongings were found in Jennifer's apartment. They found his underwear, belt, glove, his Pinkerton security guard hat, and the weapon he used to attack Jennifer. At first, when questioned by the police, he said that a man running from the building had jumped him in the grounds and escaped. He denied his involvement and stated that he too was attacked and that he was a victim, but the evidence doesn't lie. It was obvious that he was the attacker. He was convicted of attempted murder and sentenced to 20 years in prison. Jennifer's strength, courage, and quick thinking in the face of danger saved her life from a situation that, to most of us, would be an unimaginable and inescapable horror. After recovering from the attack, Jennifer moved out of the apartment complex. She opened a family law practice in Fort Worth. In 1998, Jennifer filed a lawsuit against Pinkerton Security. She was awarded an undisclosed amount of money, but I'm glad she got some sort of compensation for such a tragic event. A business based on keeping people safe, but doing the exact opposite, it's the least they could do. This is not the only incident with Pinkerton Security. In fact, between 1991 and 1995, 130 Pinkerton guards were convicted of felonies in Texas alone. The Pinkertons have a long and violent history in the U.S., dating back to 1850. And just recently, Pinkerton was back in the headlines in 2020 after a Pinkerton security guard shot and killed a man during a Patriot rally in Denver. On a more positive note, it turned out that Jennifer is still friends with the emergency dispatcher, Richard Everett, who answered her call that day. He even attended Jennifer's wedding and shared a dance with her. Today, Jennifer continues to practice family law in Fort Worth, Texas, and her story of survival continues to inspire us ladies to never back down in the face of danger. I like when these true crime stories turn out to be survival stories. I'm glad Jennifer Morey was able to overcome such a horrific event and get justice. What do you guys think about Jennifer Morey's true crime case? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm Brandi, and thanks for watching another episode of Killer Bites. Bye!